Is this the best way into Warhammer 40,000? Well, I built it, painted it and played it, and let's find out. Hello, welcome to Kep It, the place where I try and make it a bit simpler to get back into Warhammer 40,000, which is why I have got this intro set. I've assembled it, painted it, played it with my sons. We've worked through this new scenario booklet that guides you into the hobby. We've put together these pretty cool new minis across the Orcs and the Space Marines, and I have particularly experienced this new scenery. And you're going to get my honest view on that. So let's have a look in the box. Okay, let's get into the box. Start here for the 11th edition. Straight off the bat, you can see it's Ultramarines versus Orcs. So they have moved away from the Blood Angels really quickly, which I know a few people are not very happy about. And you've got a picture of the paints, the brush, the ruler, the dice. On the back, you've got the full contents list there. So you've got 12 minis, you've got a 48-page handbook, a ruler, a playing mat, 6 dice, 6 paints, 1 brush, and 3 sheets of card terrain. You can see a little bit more detail there in terms of what comes in the box, and it breaks down the steps that you need to go through to get into Warhammer. Let's get the old trusty knife out then. So this is genuinely the first time this has been opened, and I'm quite excited to have a look. Got the Ultramarines logo there, just again to really annoy the Blood Angel collectors out there. I actually didn't think this was going to be blue plastic, so that's quite interesting. I thought it was going to be grey. Right, first things first. So we've got a pretty bog standard synthetic fibre brush there. Yeah, that's all right. I can go with all the other brushes that I've got. We've got the 6 paints. So we've got a Baden Black. We've got Retributor Armour. We've got Mournfang Brown. We've got Leadbelcher. We've got Auric Flesh, obviously that's the one that you need for your Orcs. And we've got the classic Macragge Blue for your Ultramarines, because everyone wants to collect them. We've got a nice little Imperium box there, which I imagine is my dice. Yep, here we go. So these have not changed in 30 years. These are the same dice as I've got from the 2nd edition in my box upstairs. Card. Oh, I see. Okay, so the Orcs are on green, Space Marines on blue. Okay, so a quick look at the sprues then. So we've got some nice decorative bases. These are all monopose. They're all push fit. So in theory, that makes it easy to assemble. So we've got 2 sprues of Space Marines, and we've got 2 sprues of Orcs. And then we've got an envelope. Quite a formal looking envelope about. So let's open up the envelope. Do it as gently as I can, because I like to keep stuff. Got a cheap paper fold out. It's like for those of you who understand what I mean, it's kind of like a poster material fold out gaming mat, which, yeah, okay. I mean, I guess it's better than nothing. You can chuck that straight on your kitchen table, fair enough. And it does fold away to A4 size, which is quite useful. We've got the fabled cardboard scenery, which honestly, my first impression is I'm a little bit... yeah, it's a bit of an anticlimax versus what I expected. I thought it'd be a bit more like that 2nd edition stuff. This is very, very thin card. And then we've got the 48-page book, which yeah, should take us through from introduction through to play, all of the steps. So yeah, inside we've got a little bit of lore, how to build your minis. We've got your build guide for the Orcs boys. You've got a guide on how to paint, how to clean your brush. You've got, how to apply. So they do actually tell you for each set of minis, by the looks of it, how to use the 6 paints that you've got to get a basic effect, which I think, fair enough, you know. But again, if you're buying this and you don't want to be Ultramarines, then you're going to have to pick up a couple of paints in the shop when you pick it up. And then a gallery of what it should look like. And if you're getting straight into Warhammer, they're not going to look like this. Don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up about the fact that it's not super styled and really well painted in your first few efforts. I mean, in fairness to Games Workshop, these pictures they've got here, they are an accurate representation of if you've only got 6 paints. So there's no washes, there's no detail, there's no shading. It is just black, brown, gold, silver, green, and there you go. You've got some Orcs ready to play with. And I guess that's the point of this set. You got a little bit of lore about the Space Marines, the Ultramarines. You got the lore of the Orcs. And then the training scenarios, which we will focus on a little bit more, but these are kind of what I wanted to show you as well as the models, because this gets you into it. This tells you really simply, how do I start? So it focuses on movement, combat, what you need to do in each turn, what the dice rolls mean, and how you sequence a game. And I think that's quite good when you're getting right into it, or you're getting your kids into it. So there we go. That is the contents of the box. I must admit, I am slightly underwhelmed with this. I don't know what I expected, but for 50 quid, probably slightly more, if I'm completely honest. But let's put it together. Let's take a look. Right. So do you want to choose which of these models on here that you want to assemble? You want to do an intercessor. And then let's have a look in the book for that model. There's the Space Marine assembly. So can we find the one who's holding his gun sideways? Do you think it's that one?
Probably.
So fine, okay, so let's put that over there so you can see it. Why don't you start looking for pieces 20, 19, 21 and 22, and you can start snipping them off. So he gives it a go, and he didn't really have any problem, apart from getting the legs put together, which I very briefly helped on.
Okay.
Cool. Done?
Yeah.
Happy?
Yes.
How easy on a scale of 1 to 10 do you think that was?
I'd say probably an 8.
An 8, okay, cool. So an 8 out of 10 for him. I then went on and smashed the rest of them together. It took me about 10 to 15 minutes, not too big a deal. Honestly, probably the biggest problem for me was getting bored and not following the instructions. The Orcs minis are a little bit more difficult for me just because I'm less familiar with them, but you can see this one came together really quickly. Getting on the base was probably the hardest bit, to be completely honest. But yeah, take a look at this once it's brought together. It's a nice mini. It's loads of good detail. I think it looks really fun. It's definitely fitting for the Orcs. So then I got in amongst this, which was honestly the bit I was most excited for about this set. And as soon as I got it out of the box, I could tell it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. This is basically just thick paper. Yes, it slots out the perforations really easily. It slots together really easily, but it's not going to hold together. You're going to need to glue it or it'll just fall apart. It blows over, it falls over, it slides around. It's not going to last more than a couple of games. And it's certainly not going to last being knocked about by kids as they get into the game, which is honestly really disappointing. So then, on to the painting, and the first step in the book was to undercoat with the Abaddon Black. So I watered it down. I used the provided brush, which is a layering brush, so not quite big enough for this job, honestly, but the paint got on okay, and I got it covered up, and it dried fine. My eldest son gave this a go. It was his first ever orc to paint. He used the green, the brown, the silver. He usually paints Space Marines, so I think this was quite good fun for him. And again, this is an intro set, so I guess giving exposure to people to new armies or new factions is part of its job. I think he had decent fun with this. He stuck broadly to the guide. He made a few mistakes. He went over the edges. It wasn't the tidiest job in the world, but I'm not here to criticize him. This is an intro set. He's a 10-year-old, and this is exactly kind of what it's for. He had a laugh. He finished the model, and I think by the end of it, it looked okay. I mean, you can see here a load of brown going on the base, which is what the guide asks for. The base is textured, so you could probably do it a different color, but there you go. A decent finished mini, I think. So then it was my turn, and I did the Space Marine. So I followed the guide again. I put the Macragge blue over the undercoat. I used the provided brush, which is kind of a layer brush size. It wasn't, again, perfect for doing this. I probably went over twice on some of the blue, then did the brown onto the leather and the belts. There wasn't a huge amount of brown on this, but filled in pretty nicely, covered the undercoat. Then onto the silver, just touched up some small details on the gun. The guide is pretty conservative on the silver. You could do the whole gun in silver. It's entirely up to you. And on this mini, obviously, there was a nice knife there that had to be coloured silver as well. But then when it comes to Ultramarines, the important bit, which is the gold onto the pauldron, which donates the second company, I think. And yeah, that was the final, probably most fiddly bit. Now, you don't get any white in this kit. So if you're super bothered about not having the Ultramarines logo or indeed any other logo, if you want to make your own completely new faction or chapter on this one, you could just use one of the paints. You know, you could probably do an Ultramarines logo in gold if you were doing Ultramarines, but there we have it. At the end, it compared to one of my more finished minis that probably took 4 times longer. I think it hangs together pretty well. It stands the test of an intro set and getting some models onto a board quickly. So then we got into it, and training scenario number 1, the Duel of Champions, which was the Lieutenant versus the Boss Knob. Now, the booklet gives you a breakdown of the turns in terms of what hits, what misses on the dice in a nice visual way. Same for the Space Marines. Then it talks you through the turn sequence, whether you advance, whether you fall back. It moves on to talk through the shooting stage, whether you hit or miss based on your dice rolls, how to select the target, how to use scenery, assuming it stays standing up, and then the all-important charge phase and fighting phase, as we would find out. So we headed into scenario number 1, and it was some hand-to-hand combat between the boss nob and lieutenant that was over very quickly. The lieutenant being successful with most of his attacks and hits, killing the boss nob, which my 5-year-old did not enjoy. So we got straight on then into training scenario number 2, which was basically all of the base troops in this set deployed in a fixed way, and a bit of movement, a bit of shooting, and a bit of fighting. Now you can see straight away here that this cheap gaming mat that comes with this set, it's glossy, it's like a poster, and it slipped all over the table. So I frequently was having to hold it. The kids were getting excited, they were moving their models around, but then I had scenery falling over, things sliding all over the place. But what they got to do in this section, on this scenario, was to move their models, to understand the distance that their models could move, whether they were going to choose to make a charge or not, whether to seek cover, whether to shoot. What I found was my role here was to try and coach them through it a little bit. So the book did a good job in setting out the basics, but I was asking them questions in terms of, maybe you should go over here. Do you think you should try and hide? Do you think yours is better at shooting or fighting? And coach them through effectively what they wanted to do. Ultimately, they paid very little regard to that, and they just wanted to get into close combat, do the fighting phase, and start smashing each other with intercessors versus boys. And that's effectively what happened. So they ended up in close combat straight away. The option for falling back was not taken. Now you can see here, we used some of the dice as wound markers, but ultimately this was resolved quite quickly, and the orcs smashed the Space Marines and finished the intercessors off. So we then got into scenario number 3, which is Final Mission, There Is Only War, which is basically scenario number 2, but with the 2 leader units included. Now, you can see by this point, I picked out some wound markers from the old Ultimate Starter Kit from the 10th edition, those red tokens that you can see at the top right of the screen there. There wasn't enough dice to use as wound markers, and you either used a bit of paper or used your memory or had something like that. So if you get this set, you can probably just make your own or use beer caps or whatever. This followed a very similar pattern, if I'm honest, to the scenario number 2. The boys just wanted to close distance and get into combat. They exchanged blows, a bit of success on either side. You can see on the bottom there that the intercessors and the lieutenant were pulling apart the boys and the shooter as quickly as they could in combat, whereas in the top right there, a couple of intercessors were taking on the boss nob and his pair of boys that were with him, one of which had already taken a wound. They started getting picked off one by one. The orcs were not doing well in combat here, and it came to a conclusion relatively quickly with one boy and the boss nob left after, I think, 2 rounds of fighting, and then ultimately the demise of both models. With the defeat of the orcs' army, their commander, my 5-year-old, took the news particularly well. So there you have it. We built it, we painted it, we played it. And who is this set for? Good question, actually. If you are not new to Warhammer 40,000, my answer is this is not the set for you. It's got some cool minis. I think the Lieutenant model is nice. The Boss Nob model is nice. I think actually the minis in this are definitely a step up versus previous versions. And that's worth noting because the rest of the contents of the box is not a step up. This terrain, you could say, oh, well, you didn't get terrain in the last one. Well, yeah, fair enough. But this is just thick paper and it falls apart and it is just really disappointing. To the point where, yes, it's an intro set and yes, you can use it for your tabletop. But honestly, if this is what it is, you could just use something else, to be honest. Saw this when I was editing. Top left is my kit. Bottom right is the box art. Tell me I'm not going mad. That's thicker cardboard on the box art. I knew it should have been that 2nd edition thick, good quality stuff. The contents otherwise is pretty much fair enough. You've got the ruler, you've got the dice, you've got 12 models, you've got some paints which are really restricted, but again, this is an intro set. So for me, the only use case this makes sense in is if you're going to treat it a bit like buying another board game for you and your kids. Right now, when I film this in the UK, it's summer holidays, the kids are off school. This consumed the best part of half a day for us in terms of putting it together, painting it and playing it. Yes, one of my sons ran off crying at the end of it because he didn't like losing, but it's all part of the experience of Warhammer. And I would think of it that way. I paid realistically about 40 quid, I think, from a third party, not from direct from Games Workshop. If you buy it direct from them, it's about 47, 48 quid, which is what, $60. Do I think it's worth $60? As a Warhammer set, no. As an introduction to a new gaming philosophy and world, potentially. You've got activities in there. You've got building stuff, you've got painting stuff, you've got a game that you can play. Think of it that way, it's worth the money. Think of it as a Warhammer set that you're going to compare the stuff to other sets, it is not worth the money. So that's my review. I am super disappointed in my bloody cardboard scenery, which I was so looking forward to. But otherwise, do you know what? If you're getting into it, give it a go. Thanks for joining me on the video. There will be more coming. It would mean the world to me if you could like, if you could subscribe, if you could leave me a comment. I'm going to continue trying to grow the channel. And yeah, I love your feedback. Anyway, so I will see you soon on the next video. Thanks a lot.